So I'll just start. I can hear that while most of here we are in, most of us are in this organization. Probably you already know about microfinance, most of you, or something. But anyway, I thought that it could be just interesting to have a refresh on some basic concepts, really basic concepts. And if you have any questions, well, I'll try to answer them. So what is microfinance, right? So it's just microfinance is the provision for small-scale financial services to people who lack access to traditional banking services. Now, this usually implies very small loans to low-income clients for self-employment, often with simultaneous collection of small amounts of savings. Now, microfinance is not only credit. Otherwise, we would call it just microcredit. And there are many other programs that are related, that are in saving products, remittances, and insurances. It's no longer exclusively now that institutions that work for the poor, like NGOs, offer microfinance services. And recently, commercial banks and insurance companies are beginning to go downscale to reach new markets. And also, some consumer durable companies are targeting the poor people with microcredit schemes. So, now, what's the key original characteristics of microfinance? So, the first one is that it concerns small transactions and minimal balances, whether we are talking about loans, savings, or insurances. It also means that there are loans for entrepreneurial activity mainly. There's collateral-free loans, mostly. Let's think here that actually this was the original microfinance, as Jason was talking about with the Grameen idea, with the Grameen as Grameen was created. Group lending. I will talk a bit later about group lending. Now, currently, personal lending is more used than group lending, depending on which parts of the country or the world where are you located. It changes. Focus on poor clients, of course. Focus on female clients. Here I got an information that Microcredit Summit campaign reports that 80% of microfinance clients worldwide are female. So that confirms still the trend. Simple application processes, or should be simple application processes. Provision of services are underserved for communities. And there use market level interest rates. That's normally how they should be, right? Now, I will just go in some liability structure for microfinance loans, and actually Jason was talking about this group lending, but there are different types of group lendings. And so, for example, we can see that the first one is the solidarity groups, which is the classic microfinance model, or referred also as the Grameen model, which was what we started with this idea. And this group involves mainly 5-person groups, in which each group member guarantees the other member's repayment. If any of the other group members fail to repay their loans, the other group members must repay for them or face losing access to the future of credit. Here we see that it's very important to use the joint liability idea, which is one of the most important, I will say, discoveries. I don't know if it's the right word, but it's one of the most creative ways of how microfinance start actually making some success, because they find out actually this joint liability in groups works well normally. The other type is village banking. This expands the solidarity group to a larger group of 15 between 30 women or men who are responsible for managing the loan provided by the MFI, as well as making and collecting the loans to and from each other, which in this case is an internal account. Here, just to mention that in India, self-help groups operate according to a similar format, which is another type of liability structure in India, which is very commonly used. And we have also the individual lending, which of course is just providing microfinance services to individuals. Now, it's hard to distinguish individual lending from traditional banking, since they have similar formats. And this is especially true when actually some MFIs now are requiring collateral. Just as Jason was talking just before, what actually in some of his loans, the bank requests collateral. Now, some collaterals is good to say that actually some organizations use a word that's called they just get a savings. So it's compulsory savings, and some organizations use this. So if you want to have a loan, you should first have also a saving account, and that it's also kind of a collateral that is could be used by the microfinance institutions. But also it's a great opportunity for poor people to start having a saving account, which has been shown that actually the ability the ability to save sometimes is even more important than actually having access to credit, because saving sometimes is so difficult for poor people because actually they know actually where to put the money when they are able to have it. So it has been a great development in this area. Now, the importance of the group lending programs, as I was just mentioning before, is that actually, as difference with the banking system, they cannot put up collateral. But if they don't use collateral, then could be very costly for the bank to screen and monitoring these activities, or the organization actually. It's also excuse me, I just have a strongly flu. It's also very hard without collateral to enforce any contract on their side. And so the basic idea of the group lending programs is that loans are made to individuals who are members of borrowing group, as I just mentioned before also. And these member groups are responsible of repayment of the loan to the program. Now, group lending creates incentives for the individual group members to screen and monitor other members of the group and enforce repayment. It's very important to have existence of social ties between group members who may help to make screening, monitoring, and enforcement more effective. The group lending structure creates its own kind of collateral, which in literature is referred as social collateral. Jason was mentioning just how actually the loan officer came to the house of the borrower and well actually push him to pay back, and sometimes not in a nicer way. Sometimes in between when in social groups or in group lending, when actually most of the people are friends, because sometimes in some group lending, the members choose. Of course, they know that they have to repay if they don't pay back. So this put an extra, commitment, social commitment between the group members to pay back. But what happened when some of them they don't pay back? Well, there's some studies that actually shows that actually this could be very harsh for the people who cannot pay back, because I mean it could be that socially they will be excluded. They will be pointed, finger pointed. I mean, if it's a small village, the possibility to lose face, I think is a word in English, or just being tagged as a person who do not pay back the loan, could be very hard for some countries and for some cultures. You probably have heard about what happened in India, in Andhra Pradesh. They have a huge problem there because some people, well, it's a mix between different issues, but some people actually in Andhra Pradesh, what happened is that it was an over offer of services. So a lot of organizations were just providing loans without actually doing a proper monitoring of the borrower. So where they just providing loans without any checking really if the borrower wasn't able to pay back. So at the end they have with over debt, and some people they just a lot of people commit suicide just because they couldn't pay back the loans, and the what's the word? the pressure to pay back, it was just not socially a lot, but it was also in a very commercial way, was very strongly way. I just heard, I could tell you a story. I know that in Latin America, this is what's told by one of our professors, who said that actually in Latin America, some organizations, instead of actually going to the person and to the house and just threatening so he can pay or she can pay back, what they did is they actually hire a clown, and they put a clown, and the clown was just waiting outside the house of these people. And every time this guy or a woman was out for whatever work or whatever, the clown was just following and shouting at everybody that this person was not able to pay. So you can imagine the amount of pressure that actually sometimes some organizations put in the way and to pay back. Sometimes it's not really nice. And probably Jason has more stories about it to tell. Just to finish, there are other microfinance services. The most basic service is savings, of course, and credit unions and cooperatives, for instance, rely heavily on savings. Here in Colombia, we will Grameen Foundation works a lot with cooperatives, so I'm really curious about to see actually how these organizations work. Now, other programs focus only on savings, with the premise that, as I just mentioned, the poor is the most needed. The poor need most actually as a place to store their money. As I will say also, mandatory savings sometimes are required from each week from the borrower, and sometimes also for each group. Although it depends also on the MFI policies for collection of mandatory savings in case of default. Some of these programs also collect voluntary savings. Sorry, I repeat that word. And some MFIs recently have begun to offer other variety of services like insurances. Microinsurance. Someone I heard is going to work in microinsurance. It's going to be a super interesting topic, I think. Skills training and remittances services, which are, especially remittances services, are areas which still is not that easy to get in, but MFI realizing that the market is huge, of course, but you need a big amount or a very high technical background to enter into these services. But I'm sure we will see more about this in the future also. Okay, so I'll stop here. Sorry, it was just brief and a few ideas, a few points about some microfinance. Does any one of you have any question? Jason, any comment?
I think it was a really good intro. I disagree with the premise that savings are the basic product of microfinance institutions. I think credit is the basic product, and savings is more difficult to administer than credit, and requires higher regulatory thresholds, and it's not allowed unless you have certain licenses in a lot of countries. But
right.
But you know, it's just other than that, yeah. I think I think microfinance is a really interesting space, and it's a gigantic sector, and it's good that we kind of have this as a primer on it.
Yeah, you're right. You just touched an important point. It's savings, of course, can only be offered by regulated organizations, and normally these are not NGOs, which is a pity. I've heard about the story. I don't know where, that actually a country, so the government of a country actually make a change on their policies to accept the really big NGOs who have been for years there, and they didn't want to come to transform into banks, because that's normally also the trend. You start as an NGO and then you go into cooperative, and sometimes you go to a bank, and they just keep it as an NGO, and they allow the NGO to keep savings. But that's not normally the case, and indeed, to accept savings, you must most of the time be regulated, and to be regulated, most of the times you have to be already a financial organization. Not necessarily a bank, but a financial organization. You're right. Good point.